All right, sprinting. If only they had figured this out for Call of Duty 1. We're going to add in that if you hold down the Shift key, you can move faster. So the basic idea is we're going to check when we're moving forward to see if the Shift key is down. If it is down, the maximum speed is going to be more than it normally is. Otherwise, it's going to be 3 or 1.5, depending. So this is going to go down into, this is going to replace the code that we have in the up key. This part here is. So I'm creating a variable called max speed, which is going to check that. And based on that, it's going to set my speed equal to the values I need. So in the player's up key, I'm going to replace it with these commands. So I'm going to check forward for now. So there's normal speed, sprinting, normal speed. All right, sprinting. For going backwards, I actually have to reverse basically everything in this. So to begin with, I'm going to call it min speed, just because I'm like that. Min speed, min speed, min speed. Min speed, min speed. All right, other things that this needs to have happen. We need to check to see if speed is greater than that value, because we're going into the negative, so it's the opposite sign. We also need to make sure that it's the maximum of these two, since we don't want it to go too far negative, and we're going to subtract from our speed. So basically what I've done is I've switched the plus to a minus, the minimum to a max, and the less than to a greater than sign here. And this will allow me to sprint backwards, which is probably a bad idea, but there you go. Don't try this at home, folks. Uh-oh. I screwed it up. What did I do? Ah, negative min speed. That's important. Huh. No. What did I do that's wrong? Ah. -3 would be important, and -1.5. There we go. All right. So yes, indeed, I need to check to see if I'm going backwards at that speed, so those would be negative speeds. All right, so what other good stuff can we put into our game? Ah, strafing. For now, I'm going to put this in for, like, I think the Z and X keys, like they suggest. If you switch over to mouse movements, you'll eventually probably want to put those into A and D or left and right or whatever you decide you're going to do. So we're basically going to figure out the perpendicular to our camera. Largely what this means is we're going to switch the sign and the cosine. So opposite becomes adjacent, adjacent becomes opposite. That's what these things are for. So this is for the Z key. So I'm going to add in a keyboard event for the letter Z. All right, and so what this is doing, we have two variables. It's basically figuring out the perpendicular in the x direction and y direction. So whatever direction my camera is looking, imagine directly to my left. This is the point that's directly to my left. And so what it tried to do is, if by moving to that point, I don't move into a wall, just move me to that spot. So it's basically jumping you to that position. There we go. All right, so what about going the other direction? It turns out if you make both of these positive, that will give you the other direction. So if I add in an event for x, I guess. So if we add both of those, that'll go in the other direction. Whee! All right. Let's see. Is there any other basic movement we want? I think the last thing I'm going to go over today is, let's say that I wanted to switch this to the mouse moving the camera around. So this is a little tricky. What we end up having to do is, every step we're going to keep track of where the mouse is moving, left to right, up and down. So we figure out how much it's moved to left and right. And what that's going to do is that's going to add or subtract from the direction the player is. So if you go move your mouse left or in the negative x direction, I want to make sure that the direction of the player gets added to, basically. And the same thing if I'm going to the right, I need to subtract from the player's direction. So that's for left and right movement. All right, so this player object is going to need to figure out how much the x position has changed. Now, important things to note. What we're going to need to do is, we're actually going to need to get the mouse's x and y and set it back to the center. So we're actually going to take the mouse pointer, and at the beginning of the game, we're going to jump it to the center of our screen. So that's this window set position, or I'm sorry, window mouse set, x and y down here. And it's going to set the position of the mouse to wherever we want it to be. After a step, we're going to then go get the x and get the y and see how much it's changed from where we set it. So if it's become negative, then we're going to subtract from the add to the player's direction to go counterclockwise. So, to begin with, window set mouse set. What is the command? Mouse set. So I'm going to do this, since the center of my screen is 640 divided by 2, I'm just going to say 640 divided by 2. And 640 or 480 divided by 2 for the other one. So let me show you what happens when I run this. So when I run it, notice where my mouse ends up after it starts the game. Bam, right in the center. How interesting. All right. Next up, at the beginning of the, actually I think in the regular step event, I'm going to need to check the value of that. So I'm going to create two variables. I'm going to call it dx and dy for change in x and change in y, or delta x and delta y if you're a physics person. So dx is going to be whatever my current setting is. Well, actually, it'll probably be where I started, 640 divided by 2, minus window, mouse, get x. So that's how much my x has changed since the last step. dy is a similar value, 480 divided by 2, window, mouse, get, y. So a really naive thing I could do here is I could just say, hey, direction is going to be whatever dx it was plus dx. We're not going to use dy yet because that's up and down. We'll get there. So if my mouse moves to the right, that'll give me a negative value. which I'm then going to add, and that's correct. So this sign matters. Oh, one other thing I do need to do. After this, I need to jump the mouse back to the center so that I don't accidentally go off the screen, and then you can no longer move your person. So I'm going to do a window mouse set back to 640 divided by 2, 480 divided by 2. Wow, that's kind of fast. Whee!